Welcome back to the Rockstars. I'm Erik Voss, and this is a breakdown of the trailer for Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, a follow-up to 2021's Ghostbusters Afterlife that introduced us to the descendants of Egon Spengler and reunited them with Harold Ramis's ghost. And now everybody's been dragged back into the big city with the original cast, including Dickless, to stop the second ice age. All of this is coming March 22nd. Let's break down this trailer shot by shot for all the Easter eggs, callbacks, and an answer to the question of whether Rick Moranis' Louis Tully could be hiding in this trailer. Hey, come hang out with New Rockstars live in Los Angeles on February 15th at Brain Dead Studios. Our last live show was a lot of fun, and we gotta talk with you guys on the other side of the Super Bowl about Deadpool 3, how weird Madam Web is gonna be, and other crazy stuff that you never get to see us do here on YouTube. Tickets are still available, link in the description. Okay, let's break down this trailer. But in this video, we are gonna look at shots from both the North American version of the trailer and the international trailer. If you, like me, found the North American trailer to be kind of hard to follow, more centered around the jokes and the member berries, with weird dialogue and the cuts just kind of happening illogically, definitely watch the international trailer, because what this movie is trying to do makes a lot more sense if you watch that. Okay, this trailer opens with the Ecto-1 swerving down 5th Avenue in Manhattan. This is on 5th between 19th and 20th, and while you cannot see it that well here, that is the Empire State Building in the background on the left. And looking at the Ecto-1, you will notice right away that roof has now been augmented with this dome. This contains the drone-powered ghost trap that we will see later. Inside the car is Egon Spengler's family, his daughter Callie Spengler, Carrie Coon, and her kids, Egon's grandkids, Trevor, Finn Wolfhard, and Phoebe McKenna Grace, and their former teacher and seismologist, Gary Gruberson, Paul Rudd. It looks like they all have Ghostbusters jumpsuits with Spengler on the patch, but Gary got his own patch with Gruberson, which is a mouthful of letters to fit on an embroidered patch, but they made it work. Quick recap from Ghostbusters Afterlife. Phoebe and Trevor found the Ecto-1 in Egon's Somerville, Oklahoma home, along with all of his old gear, but a nearby old mine shaft owned by the Shandor Mining Company. Shandor, of course, was the name of the leader of the Gozerian cult referenced in the 1984 film. This mine shaft has a temple that Egon had rigged to stop Gozer from escaping from a portal, but Gozer breaks free. The family uses Egon's gear to stop Gozer, and they get an assist from the OG crew, Peter Venkman, Ray Stantz, and Winston Zeddemore, along with the help of the ghost of Egon Spengler himself. Director Jason Reitman, son of Ghostbusters director Ivan Reitman, recreated the likeness of the late Harold Ramis with the visual effects team at the moving picture company. Bob Gunton and Ivan Reitman actually did the physical performance, and it was done reportedly with the blessing of Ramis's family. Since then, SAG-AFTRA has actually won new rules after their 2023 strike, mandating that consent from the performer must be obtained to create AI replicas. And if the actor is deceased, the production must get consent from, quote, an authorized representative or the union. I have some personal thoughts about this that I will get to at the end of this breakdown. But in the closing minutes of the 2021 film, Peter Venkman returned to New York, where we learn that he was married to Dana Barrett, Sigourney Weaver, and in a post-credit scene, Winston meets with Janine. He gives her the key that she had given to Egon Spengler before the final battle of the 1984 film, and Winston starts talking about his history with the crew, how he covers the rent at Ray's bookstore, and his success growing his company, Zeddemore Industries.
I started this business with one employee, and I've grown it into a thriving global enterprise. I may be a businessman, but I will always be a Ghostbuster.
And then Winston returns the Ecto-1 to the old Ghostbusters firehouse, and in the basement, a light on the Ecto containment unit flashes red. That red flash may be a sign of the villainous ghost of this movie, Garaka. So in this movie, William Atherton returns as Walter Peck. You remember him? That's the EPA inspector from the 1984 film who tried to shut down the Ghostbusters and stupidly shut off their containment unit. Peck also showed up in an episode of the real Ghostbusters animated series, Big Trouble with Little Slimer, and in the Ghostbusters video game when he led the Paranormal Contracts Oversight Commission. And it's just kind of a recurring tradition that government oversight is just the natural enemy of the Ghostbusters. It's kind of why we love the Ghostbusters. They're working class heroes. And hey, in the real world, the US Supreme Court is probably going to reverse the Chevron rule and completely gut federal agencies' regulatory powers. So no wonder Dickless is so pissed off. Peck says,
I've been waiting 40 years for this.
They called themselves Ghostbusters. According to these hacks, they saved the world. No eyewitnesses.
I find what he's saying to be kind of weird, because in the 1989 sequel, Ghostbusters 2, the Ghostbusters were sued for property damage out the wazoo. They were put out of business from investigating the paranormal at all. They were forced to make money from birthday parties and raise a cult bookstore. So yeah, the Ghostbusters were already properly discredited 35 years ago. I also don't know why Peck says that there were no eyewitnesses to what they did, as everyone in New York could see the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, and even Louis Tully testified that he got turned into a dog and the Ghostbusters saved him. But I guess that Peck is saying that the Stay Puft Venkman exploded like on his own and that Lewis is a liar. Really, I just think that Dickless probably feels like he never got his name cleared after they called him Dickless in the 1984 incident, and for 40 years he has just feared that the city might call upon them again for some of their bullshit, which definitely seems to be the case here as Winston, through his business's success, has put the Ghostbusters back in business. We dissolve from the Spengler family in the Ecto-1 to Ray and Winston in the Ecto-1 in the scene in the 1984 film. This is the scene where Ray quoted the foreboding passage from the Book of Revelation as they were driving over the bridge.
And I looked as he opened the sixth seal, and behold, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became as black as sackcloth, and the moon became as blood.
And the seas boiled, and the skies fell.
Judgment Day.
Judgment Day.
We see shots in these opening parts of Phoebe and Trevor going through Egon's old boxes. You'll notice there's one that's labeled Ghostbusters Artwork. And then we see Peck grilling the Spengler family.
You have a miner hanging out the side of a moving vehicle, firing a laser gun indiscriminately.
Has a proton pack.
It's completely safe.
I wouldn't say completely safe.
The Ghostbusters are finished.
Right, well, overruled.
Sustained.
Thank you.
So Peck's office here makes it look as though he might now be the mayor of New York. It's definitely a different office than the mayor's office from the 1984 film, but there is the flag of New York City in the background there. He's wearing the black vest and red tie that the mayor wore in 1984. I guess it'd be kind of weird for an EPA agent to climb the ranks of New York City's politics to become the mayor, especially if he was so publicly anti-Ghostbusters. And you gotta imagine someone from the EPA is gonna be really pissed off when the summertime is suddenly plagued with an ice storm, something that's just gonna make his job a lot harder to explain global warming. Now, the family's in trouble because they were chasing down this blue serpentine ghost with these oozy jaws. We see this later in the trailer and in the international version. Phoebe on the side chair using the proton pack to lasso it, and Trevor piloting that drone-operated trap to catch it. Under that dome, it even has a drone landing pad on the roof of the Ecto-1. Very cool. And yes, very clearly designed to sell more toys. In Ray's occult bookstore, he reads this book titled Strange But True, The World's Weirdest Newspaper Stories, and Kumail Nanjiani plays someone named Nadeem Razmati, and he tries to sell this mysterious orb to Ray. If you listen closely to this moment in the trailer, you can actually hear some whispering mixed into the audio as Ray lifts it up. The international version of the trailer shows this long line of eccentric folks with creepy objects, dolls, there's a saxophone. They're all trying to sell these possessed possessions to Ray for top dollar. And I like how on the outside of the store, you can see that there's live music that plays at Ray's bookstore. I imagine it's probably the Blues Brothers. I also like how in an overhead shot, he's definitely inspecting this orb with a PKE meter, because of course he is. The international trailer also shows Winston introducing the family to his new paranormal research center. I assume this is in the basement of the firehouse.
Welcome to the new Paranormal Research Center.
You just let ghosts hang out in here?
We've spent 40 years trapping them. Now we can study them.
And working for Winston Zeddemore Industries includes Celeste O'Connor returning as Lucky Domingo from Somerville, Oklahoma in the first film, and newcomer British comedian James Acaster as a character named Lars Penfield. Lars has been described as an Egon Spengler type. He oversees the technology for this company, and I love how these techs all wear black jumpsuits with the no ghost patch, but the red circle of the logo is in the shape of a gear. Also notice how the red ecto containment unit is a lot bigger now when Winston shows it off. Previously it was like the size of a fuse box, now it has taken up the entire wall. So it's just a little sign of how things have escalated. In the North American trailer, Lars and Lucky experiment with this orb, and Lars's hand freezes over it when he tries to touch it. Right before his hand touches it though, notice how specific pieces of this orb stick out and then drop back into place. I think it's kind of like a spherical Rubik's Cube where the runes twist around to form into a new alignment. The miniature Stay Puft Marshmallow Men return in this film, first seen in the Oklahoma Superstore, activating from a bag of marshmallows. As they did before, these guys just gleefully mutilate themselves and each other. One just whips candy into the other's mouth. They mush up their arms in a pencil sharpener. Meanwhile, there's another one with a pencil in the background that just looks like it's impaled in his chest. The international trailer shows one having been flattened completely. Why do they do this? I assume it's because for them existence is pain, and doing this to themselves and each other is the only way they can relieve that pain. Now, February 15th, New Rockstars is putting up another live show in Los Angeles at Brain Dead Studios. At these New Rockstars live shows, we cover the latest releases, we have some special guests, we have a great time geeking out with you in the audience in person, and we get to do stuff that we never get to do here on YouTube. The last one of these we did in November, it's just been a complete blast. It's just been amazing to meet all of you. So we want to do another one of these. Brain Dead Studios is this awesome old school single screen theater. They have a beer garden, they have some really cool merch. So if you're in Los Angeles, we would love to see you there. February 15th is going to be days after the Super Bowl and a day after the release of Madam Web. So we're going to have so much to talk about, so much to theorize on, and so much to just recover from. So let's do it together. You can get a ticket by clicking the link in the description or by heading to dice.fm and searching for New Rockstars. Tickets are limited, so grab yours now. We'll see you in person on February 15th. Patton Oswalt plays the new character, Dr. Hubert Wurtzki, who seems to be some kind of expert in history of the artifact and in Garaka. Then Ray, with Lars behind him in a sling, you'll notice, maybe after his hand froze off, he explains to Nadim,
The parables tell of an unimaginable evil, commanding an army of ghosts.
I find this line to be a little odd, especially for someone like Ray, who knows the scripture chapter and verse. Parables refer to short, simple stories that are used to explain moral lessons, like the prodigal son. Like, you wouldn't have parables foretelling doomsday imagery like this. You find this kind of stuff in the book of Revelation, the verses of which Ray probably would not call parables. So maybe he's referring to some other non-biblical text that is known as like parables, like the Dead Sea Scrolls have a section of parables where everything's just doom and gloom and end of world prophecy. Ray explains that this army has a power to kill with fear itself, and Gary explains it as scared to death. It seems like the idea of this movie is a play on the old Franklin D. Roosevelt maxim, the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. And these ghosts cause death by draining the warmth that humans associate with safety, and that fear is what freezes them dead in their tracks. The leader of this army is a slender figure with long horns named Garaka. According to a Funko Pop release, Garaka is depicted on this ancient tablet with fog billowing out from behind her arms. I'm referring to this ghost as her, as actress Emily Allen Lind has been cast in an undisclosed role. I don't know if it's this or some other part that we just haven't seen yet in trailers. I like this shot of Garaka's spiny fingers latching onto horns that are held on display against this gold wall. I actually think this might be the fancy location that we see the firefighter in later when he touches a frozen body and it shatters. I'm wondering if that is some kind of old museum or like an old house where Garaka's horns were kept as art pieces. Also, it looks like this firefighter is from Firehouse number 8, which is the station that the Ghostbusters repurposed for their office. So I think the idea of this movie is that the first ice age might have been caused by Garaka, and that only by defeating Garaka were tribes of early humans able to flourish into civilizations. That's why it's called Frozen Empire, is that during the ice age, this supernatural force is really what was ruling the planet. I'm guessing Garaka was defeated in ancient times by severing the horns and then trapping its depowered form in the orb. Like, this orb was an old world version of the trap device, and we might learn about ancient sorcerers who busted ghosts in their own ways. We see a blizzard storm cloud approaching Coney Island Beach with spikes that shoot up from the sand and then throughout the city. Honestly, it's less the cold that I would be worried about, in the way that the Day After Tomorrow froze fleeing civilians who couldn't run fast enough, but I would just be more worried about getting impaled on one of these spikes. Like, notice how this huge spike goes up through the taxi and it looks like it goes up on the driver's side. If there was anybody in that taxi, they would be dead. Winston is bringing the old gang back together.
Let's get to work.
Can I be of any help? Melnitz in uniform. Yeah.
Yes, Janine even gets to suit up in this movie, and it looks like it's Janine there who has this wrist-mounted tech that looks like a wand-free Neutrona. We see a library ghost charging at Ray, a callback to the library ghost at the beginning of the 1984 film, but this actually might be in his occult bookshop. If so, the deep stacks in the store suggest that this is a way bigger collection and floor space than I would expect Ray to have. And I like how this library ghost at least looks like parts of her were made practically, because back in the 1984 film, she was made pretty much completely practically, and she looks great then. We also meet this new little ghost who projectile vomits green slime. This guy is apparently called Pukey, and we hear Paul Rudd referencing the lyrics of the Ray Parker Jr. theme song.
If there's something strange, if there's something weird, who are people gonna call?
And yes, he's quoting the often joked about lyric from Ray Parker Jr.
Can I tell you something else? Bustin' makes me feel good. Makes me feel good.
Yes, Bustin makes us all feel good. But you know what? It's that second follow-up defensive, it makes me feel good, that I love about Paul Rudd's delivery here. Like, the line isn't gross in his mind. He just kind of wholesomely loves the life of a Ghostbuster. We see the New York Public Library, the lion statues. These are actually named Patience and Fortitude, and these guys appeared in the 1984 film after Ray, Egon, and Peter left the library. But the lion statue comes to life and roars at Ray and Dr. Hubert. Now, maybe I'm overthinking it, but think about the new younger comedic actors that are now part of this franchise. Paul Rudd, Patton Oswalt, James Acaster, and Kumail Nanjiani. Doesn't it kind of seem like we're getting a new Ghostbusters lineup for this generation with those four guys? Like, Paul Rudd would be like the Bill Murray, Peter Venkman type. Patton Oswalt would be the nerdy, bookish Dan Aykroyd, Ray Stantz type. James Acaster would be the brainy engineer Egon Spengler type. And Kumail Nanjiani is kind of the outsider who comes into this world loving it even more than the others. Now, I guess I don't completely agree with those actors fitting those personality types completely perfectly. Like, really, in my opinion, Kumail's comedic energy is more Venkman. Paul Rudd is more of a Winston. and Patton Oswalt would be as much of a Spengler as Acaster is. But I guess I'm just trying to see this from the way Sony would try to package these actors and sell them to international audiences. And if this movie is successful, they're totally gonna want a new Ghostbusters lineup of funny men from 2024 that doesn't include aging actors and doesn't include kids and doesn't remind people of the 2016 lineup. Lucky Domingo fires a proton pack at Garaka as Garaka towers over the lab, but notice that Garaka here does not have the horns yet. So this would be earlier in the movie before they reach their final form. But also notice that that proton stream itself freezes. So an energy stream freezing. Whoa. Now, some trailer shots showed Lucky's eye freezing over, but later shots with the full cast do show Lucky with the rest of them. So I assume Lucky is going to recover. But it also seems like this basement lab is going to be the location of the final showdown with the combined generations of Ghostbuster teams.
Heads up! Tall, dark, and horny at 12 o'clock.
Now notice that all characters are visible in frame for this group shot of Garaka's ice vomit forming a trench, but on the far left, that is definitely an additional character that is not one of the others running off to the side. So, did they do it? Did they get Louis Tully, Rick Moranis to come out of retirement for this movie? Rick Moranis said in the year 2000 that he was like done being in movies. He was just gonna go play his banjo for the rest of his life and be happy, which I was always happy for him that he did that. But then like around 2020, he said that he was gonna come back into movies to make a Honey, I Shrunk the Kids reboot called Shrunk with director Joe Johnston. It was speculated to be a Disney Plus release, but we haven't heard anything about it. Guys, we might finally get a Rick Moranis comeback. And if this gets us one step closer to having an SCTV reunion with Catherine O'Hara, Eugene Levy, Marty Short, oh my God, dream come true. So we end this trailer in the firehouse attic as Trevor approaches a pile of wrappers, a massive pile of wrappers, with a trap, and blast! Seimer bursts out, passing through him, leaving a trail of ectoplasm in his mouth. Now, I assume Trevor just had his mouth open and conveniently, because Peter Venkman did also spit up a bit of ectoplasm in the hotel. But I just wonder, when Slimer phases through something, is it just like any open orifice can catch some of the slime? Or as he goes through your mouth and through your lungs and everything, can some of the slime get trapped in there too? Like, how much slime is in them? Okay, here's my soapbox rant when it comes to resurrecting dead actors. Harold Ramis in Ghostbusters Afterlife, Carrie Fisher in The Rise of Skywalker, Christopher Reeve in The Flash. It may piss some of you guys off if you loved the ending of Ghostbusters Afterlife. And you know what? As I watched it, I appreciated it too, but just hear me out on this. Even if a deceased actor's living relatives or their estate gives their blessing, or if it's the late actor's friends involved in the making of the new installment, I still do not think that is enough. We never know what relationship an actor had with their relatives. They might have never met their grandkids or their great-grandkids. They might consider their future descendants total assholes for trying to cash in on great-great-grandpa's work with royalties paid to the family estate. So I just think unless the actor wrote down somewhere that they consented to their digital likeness being used to zombie them in a future sequel or a future franchise-connected project, or if that actor had consented to their living descendants controlling how their digital likeness gets zombified, if we don't know otherwise, I just think it's unethical to do it. Like, if you want to bring a character back, hire a new actor who looks like them, or film them in a way that doesn't have to show their face, or have to digitally recreate them in any weird way. And if it feels disrespectful to do that with an actor, it should feel even worse to do it with VFX. That's just my opinion. Now, in this case, OG Ghostbusters actors did joke about them being brought back in future sequels as ghosts, but I don't think they meant post-mortem, as was the case with Harold Ramis. I don't know, maybe they did discuss it internally, but are we just gonna take Jason Reitman and Ivan Reitman's word for that? Are we gonna say it's enough that Harold Ramis's family said it was okay? I don't know, guys. With these movies, I just feel like Sony is seeing a nostalgia cash grab, and then other studios saw Ghostbusters Afterlife and were like, hey, we can do this with Christopher Reeve. I just think it's an icky precedent, and I don't think the new SAG rule goes far enough. But let me know down below your thoughts on this issue, and what from this trailer has you the most excited. Another reminder to join us for our live show in Los Angeles on February 15th, and give this video a like and subscribe to New Rockstars. I'm Erik Voss. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye.